State of the program, Kentucky Wildcats edition. I am joined by the one and only J Man, who you may know from the Sleepers Media channel or also from J Man's takes on Twitter. He is a Duke fan, so if you're grade tanks, Kentucky fans, you know why. You know where to come. It's the Duke fan, just saying. No, we're going to have some fun with this one. It should be a fun time. How this works, we got five categories: returnees, departures, recruits, transfers, and vibes. The overall goal is to grade each one of these categories on a scale of 1 to 10. J-Man has 50 points to give out. I have 50 points to give out. In the end, we add it up, and your program gets an overall score between 1 to 100. I will say we've done about 12 of these right now. Not going to reveal where all the scores are. You can go watch the videos on the channel if you want to. We have two scores that have totaled in the 50s on the low end. We have a bunch of scores in the 60s. And we have one team that's way outpacing everybody with a 91, which is the number to beat. So no real middle ground here. A 91, a bunch of schools in the 60s, a couple in the 50s. We will see where Kentucky grades out. We will start with our returnees category. Now, I will say there's not much here. They would get a 10 out of 10 if they return everything of note. They would get a 1 out of 10 if we don't think they have anything of note. The big name returning for Kentucky is Otega Oweh. As Kentucky reporters have framed it all offseason, Otega is Otega. What you're getting is what you got last year, one of the more productive wings in the country. Along with him returns Brandon Garrison, who may start at center while Jaden Quaintance is out to begin the year. Colin Chandler, one of Mark Pope's holdovers who originally committed to him at BYU, played 10 minutes a game last year. Trent Noah, the Mountain Mamba, as they call him. His shooting has been gassed up all offseason long, but those are the only four returnees for Kentucky basketball this year. Preseason SEC Player of the Year type in Oweh, and then three role players that you're hoping come off the bench when this team is at full strength. 1 to 10, what do you grade their returnees?
Well, with Owe coming back, I mean that holds a lot of value to me. I know they only have four total returnees coming back, but like you said, he has preseason player of the year potential. I mean, hell, even just player of the year potential in general in the SEC. I have them as a 5 out of 10. I think that, I think it's probably fair for them is right down the middle. They did lose a lot, but when you bring in, again, you have three role players coming in with Owe and Brandon Garrison. If he can step in and play good minutes. He played good minutes last year for him, especially against Duke. I remember that game, unfortunately. And look, 6 points a game, 4 rebounds per game in 17 minutes, and Otega having 13 games of 20 or more last year. I have him down at a 5 out of 10.
All right, 5 out of 10 from J-Man here. We may differ on a couple of these categories, and I think I've been an overwhelmingly positive grader this year, which is very off-brand for me. But I am actually going to give Kentucky a 9 here.
Oh, wow.
And I think this tracks with some of the other grades I gave out. I also gave Duke a 9. Now, Duke returns a lot of talent, but they don't return a guaranteed proven starter. And I think that's why Kentucky gets to that level for me. I'm not a huge believer in any of the other three names here. I think Brandon Garrison could end up out of the rotation entirely by the end of the year if Quaintance is healthy and Malachi Moreno emerges. I like Colin Chandler. I like Trent Noah. To me, both those guys should be right around the same role they had last year. If they make shots, they'll play. If they don't, they might not. But to me, Otega Oweh is probably a top five returnee in the entire sport. It's very rare to have a player that good return. Number one, turn down the NBA draft, but number two, turn down transfer portal options. Now, no one is really going to usually transfer out of Kentucky unless something goes wrong. He's in a great spot. I'm not denying that, but I think you've got to give Pope credit. He built this roster with Otega's return in mind. Ultimately, he executed on that, and I think this is more than most blue blood programs would return when you have a player like Oweh in the fold. So they get a 9 from me. They got a 5 for you. We move on to departures next. This is the one reverse psychology category that we have because if you don't lose anything substantial, you would get a 10. If you lose everything substantial, you would get a zero. The reality here is there are a lot of outgoing players for Kentucky, whether by design or not by design. Last year's team was old, and they're all out of eligibility. Lamont Butler, Amari Williams, Andrew Carr, Jackson Robinson, Kobe Brea, and Ansley Almanor are all out of eligibility. That, again, was by design in year one of the Mark Pope era, but they are gone. Kerr Kriisa is a transfer here, the one guy who theoretically could have come back to Kentucky. However, I don't know that Kentucky necessarily even wanted that coming off of a season ending injury last year. Grant Darbyshire, Travis Perry, and Walker Horn are the other names. I will say on Travis Perry, before I throw it to you for your grade, he fits the Colin Chandler, Trent Noah mold where I think Kentucky would have liked to bring him back. Mark Pope went on record saying, it broke my heart to lose this kid this year. And he did leave for an interconference rival, Chris Beard, the Ole Miss program, where he might end up a big time player someday down the line. So I don't know. It's a lot of names at minimum, and it's most of the production from last year. 5 guys that average 10 or more points a game are outgoing from this team. What grade are you giving them 1 to 10?
Yeah, first off there, Greg, I will say that you are the more lenient grader in our Duke video as well. You had Duke I think a 9 out of 10 also or higher grade than me for the returnees. So
Yep.
Kentucky fans don't come after me of hate. I've graded Duke low in that as well. But for
Yep.
departures, I got to give them a low grade, just like I gave Duke. They lost the starting five that all got drafted. Similar with Kentucky, you kind of lose, like you said, 5 double-digit scores, and then your defense identity of Lamont Butler guarding at the point guard position, Amari Williams, what he did defensively at the center position, just 2 guys that were just unbelievable there. I give them a 3 out of 10 here. I give them a low grade. Again, they do return away that we just talked about, but my grade is a 3 out of 10.
I'm gonna give him a 2. I'm even lower on it. I try to keep it very siloed into what are we losing production wise. This team is losing like 80% of its production from last year, even with Owe in the fold. It's by design, but I think that tells the story of where we're at in the program right now. Mark Pope could have come in and tried to bring in some guys with multiple years of eligibility in year one. Instead, he did not, and that by default means you're entering a quick reload process. I wouldn't call it a rebuild because you got a lot of talent in, and we'll speak to those guys positively in just a moment. But the reality is, this is a whole new team, and with a whole new team comes challenge. And I think it's going to be a challenge for Kentucky to replace 5 guys that scored 10 or more points a game last season. I would add 2. I might have been at a 3, maybe even higher, but I'm going to dock him a point for the Travis Perry departure. Anytime you have a coach so on record talk about a player that was an in-state kid that the fan base really gravitated toward, hey, this was not my plan. I didn't want to lose him. To me, that means something went wrong in the handling of him. So it's an early data point. If Pope was so outward that he didn't want to lose him and you lost him, something went wrong. I'm going to go 2, added together, and that's 5 points total for departures. For the record, that's right at what both Arizona and Duke scored. So teams that have a lot of talent and guys leave, this is just natural. It is the state of the program. We move to recruits. It's a pretty good recruiting freshman class for Mark Pope, starting to get a sense of how he's going to recruit here. The headliner was Jasper Johnson. Fringe 5-star kid. When he committed, he was a 5-star. 24/7 ended up as a 4-star, the 20th best recruit in the country, a guard that should factor into this team. Malachi Moreno, another 4-star, fringe 5-star kid, 6'11". I think he's going to play bench big minutes, especially with Jaden Quainton's injury early in the season, but going to be competing with Brandon Garrison for who emerges as the backup center on this team. And then a third guy that was a late add here, Braden Hawthorne, 33rd rated player in the class per 24/7, a huge stock riser. This is a kid that was outside the top 100 for most of his recruitment, sort of emerged very quickly as an option at the blue blood level. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Duke sniffing around Braden Hawthorne a little bit too?
Yeah, they were. They were sniffing around with Braden Hawthorne, and because I remember when he decommitted from West Virginia, like obviously it was quick names attached for Kentucky and Duke.
And Michigan was trying, but I think when Michigan saw Kentucky and Duke, they were like, nope, we'll go elsewhere here. Ultimately, he chooses Kentucky, and this is a guy. Mark Pope's compared him to Tayshaun Prince, just long, lanky, with a tool set that's tantalizing if it ever comes together. So, three-man class, all top 35 players. It's not the sexy five stars that you're used to with John Calipari, but it's three guys that might have multiple years at Kentucky that all have pretty enormous upside. What grade are you going with here?
So I'm going to give them, like, they were 17th best class via on three. They're 41st the year prior. So Mark Pope did a really good job of, really getting some guys. I got them right at, you know what, I'm gonna round it up. I'm gonna feel nice. 8 out of 10. I'm gonna get 8 out of 10 in the recruiting class because I was right there, 7, 8. I'm gonna give him an 8. I feel good today. But I really like Malachi Marino. Like I know that I know the front court there's gonna be a little logjam maybe, but when I turn on his tape, dude, I just liked what I saw from him. He won this Kentucky State title. Back-to-back years, Kentucky's getting a guy from Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, to come. Obviously, Travis Perry was the guy, the other one, but he's coordinated at 7 foot, low post presence, good footwork, good touch, can shoot it a little bit. And Braden Hawthorne, you touched on it too. Tayshaun Prince is what Mark Pope said. He has an awkward game, but that's like it's a compliment. It's like you can never time what he's trying to do because he's so awkward, and that he benefits from that timing, that mistiming. And so Hawthorne's a guy I like with that length, but Marino and then Jasper Johnson shooting, it'll be interesting to see with that because OTE guys, I just can't put. I have to see them play in college. I know what his numbers were at overtime elite, but when you watch those for 30 seconds and you're just like, what is going on? But I like Jasper the way he can shoot it, but Malachi Marino is a guy I'm really high on.
There's a wide range of outcomes with OT guys, anywhere from Amen and Asar Thompson to Cannon Catchings. Like, good luck trying to figure out who's who here. Jasper is a really, really fun player. I will say that the early reports from him, Intel summer stuff wise, is huge fluctuations in consistency. Like when he gets going, he's like an unstoppable off the dribble scorer. And then when he has lapses with consistency, he kind of just mentally maybe out of it. Defensively, there's concerns. This is a veteran Kentucky team, as always, with national title hopes. To me, if you have consistency issues, you probably find yourself on the outside looking in, at least in year one. But one thing I would say, maybe my favorite part about this recruiting class, I think Jasper's a kid that might sign up for multiple years at Kentucky. And when you got a kid that's a fringe five-star that, seems invested in possibly staying more than 1 year, that could be the most valuable thing a program could have. Duke knows well about that. If you keep a guy with an NBA future around for 2, 3, 4 years, suddenly your program's in a really healthy spot. So I think as a baseline, this is year two of Mark Pope. We're trying to figure out what is he going to build. This is his first recruiting class. To have three guys that all have NBA upside that also are not guaranteed one and dones, I think is about the best case scenario here. For me, I'm going with a 9. I'm not going with a 10 because the only thing missing from it is that guaranteed pro. Was there a guy that was just a no-brainer, top 10 caliber guy? This is a loaded recruiting class, right? Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, AJ DeBonce, even a guy like Koa Pete at Arizona. To me, a player like that, Michael Brown at Louisville, if this class had that, it's an automatic 10. Ultimately, it's a little more developmental. I think it's good long-term for Kentucky, but this year's team might be missing the true ready now freshman that I think Mark Pope is going to try to get in future classes. He's after Tyron Stokes right now. He's going to try and play both, and we'll see where it goes. Good score there, though. 17 out of 20 for recruits. We're rolling in a positive train now into a category that I expect Kentucky to score very highly here as well in transfers. A lot was made of how much they spent on this transfer class. We believe this is the highest budget any team had in the transfer portal this summer. And given the pedigree and the names involved, I think that tracks. Jalen Lowe is either the best or second best player in this class. He was the most productive last year. 17 points a game, 5.5 assists, 2 steals a game. Inefficient as a scorer, but undoubtedly a guy with pro potential and a guy that has all conference potential immediately. Alongside him, Jaden Quaintance, who is a projected lottery pick anywhere you look. The only reason he's not in the NBA is because of an injury and because he was 17 years old last season. You may only get 1 year of him at Kentucky, but I think it's a talent upgrade for them from Amari Williams, who was very good last year, into one of the best centers in the country. Outside of Lowe and Quaintance, I'll be quick. You stole SEC starter caliber players from two other SEC programs, Denzel Aberdeen away from Florida, Mo Diabate away from Alabama. Now, those guys were fringe starters, guys that might be coming off the bench at their previous stops, but guys that are going to play huge roles for Kentucky. And ultimately, it is a competitive disadvantage for both Florida and Alabama that they chose to stay in conference, and we'll have to see those teams again. Cam Williams is the fifth guy in this class, which is insane. Anywhere else in the country, he would be a top 2 or 3 guy in a class. NBA people love him. He's an incoming sophomore from Tulane. Big 6'8" wing sniper. Shot 41% from three on 4.5 attempts a game last year. And then last and least, respectfully to him, he is just the least player in this class. It's Reese Potter from Miami of Ohio. We don't think he'll be in the rotation. But again, Reese Potter is a 7'1" kid that was going to play real minutes in the MAC and is just like, you know what? I'd be happy to be a practice player at Kentucky. Pretty insane when you frame it that way. Ultimately, it's a 6-man class. What grade are you giving this class 1 to 10?
I'm giving it a 10. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. I mean, you nailed it with Denzel Aberdeen. You take a guy that averaged 20 minutes a game for the national champions last year, that he's going to come in and bring just that winning mentality. Knows what it takes to win a national championship. Now he's coming over. As a guy that is a Duke fan, I know how great it is to have a Tulane transfer. And Sion James was that for us last year. You have Cam Williams, who I'm really high on. I love the way he shoots it. Even Mark Pope said something about him shooting this summer, like he was probably the best shooter in the gym. Jalen Lowe is just a guy that Twitter is going to live and die by him every game. He's going to look like the best player at times, going to look like the worst player when he struggles to shoot the ball. But when he's hot, Jalen Lowe can absolutely fill it up. But he just has to have better shot selections, which I think Mark Pope will make that happen. And then you get Diabate from Alabama, 6'7". You get that length. And Reese Potter, just to touch on Reese Potter, we talked about with Duke. Like for me, the one thing that scared me was they didn't have a third big after two guys that could be injured in Gongba and Malik Brown. So Reese Potter would be a nice big to have for Duke right now, just a 7'1" guy that would have played minutes in the MAC. But I give this whole transfer class a 10 out of 10.
I have to give it a 10 too. I do. And there are moments I critique this class because, in my opinion, I'm going to repeat it. In my opinion, when you have more money than anyone else, I think you could have gotten some brighter star power types here. Specifically, they tried to get Donovan Dent early. To me, Donovan Dent's a better player than Jalen Lowe. They tried to get Yaxel Lendeborg early. Yaxel Lendeborg, God forbid, if you put him next to Jaden Quaintance, we're saying Kentucky's the preseason #1 team in the country. So ultimately, I think they overpaid for a few of these players. I think they overpaid for Denzel Aberdeen and Mo Diabate, who to me are good role players on a national title team. But for the sake of this exercise, who cares? Who cares if you overpaid? If you have the money and you can spend it, go spend it. You can critique it the way I have this summer, but you can't knock what the ultimate sum is here. It's the biggest, best, brightest transfer class in the country. You could argue maybe Louisville or Michigan are up there. I think I ranked Kentucky my third best transfer class in the country when we did our transfer rankings. But again, for a score purpose, this is the only 10 that we've given out on a 1 to 10 scale for transfers, and it's a unanimous 10. That's what you get when you have more money and you execute on spending it at a really high level. You can only tip your cap to Mark Pope. The last category here is vibes. I'm so curious to see what you, as a Duke fan, are going to rate the vibes for Kentucky here. It's interesting to get perspective of it. You could talk me into anything with Kentucky. One thing is a guarantee, though. Kentucky fans are really happy with where this is. I mean, in year one for Mark Pope, they won a bunch of big games. They made a second weekend. They did not hang a banner, and I point that out from time to time to them. But there is genuine belief in what Mark Pope is building. From the moment he was hired to where we're at now, it's certainly solidified that this guy is the right guy for the job. So my outside interpretation, without steering you too much, is that vibes are pretty damn high. But again, I'm a Michigan fan. You're a Duke fan. Maybe our perspectives are different. What grade are you going for vibes here?
I got a high grade on vibes. I mean, one thing about Mark Pope is he is a vibes guy. Like every time I see Mark Pope on Twitter or on screen doing something, I'm like, this dude just seems like he's a genuine good dude. Like outdoor boys is like Mark Pope. That those two guys are the same person to me. So I give vibes 10 out of 10 because you hit on it with the transfer class. They paid for all that talent and it worked. The recruiting class go from 41st to 17th with guys that could be they could possibly be hitters for them at getting legit minutes, and you retain OA to come in and come off of 16 points per game year last season. So you bring back a pivotal piece. You have a good recruiting class, and you knock it out of the park with your transfer portal. So I don't know how the vibes can't be any higher than that. So I give it a 10 out of 10.
All right, you're going 10 out of 10. The typical way I do my vibes grade is I start with a baseline 5 and I give teams points or subtract points based on certain data points that happened. I'm going to cheat a little bit here and just fast forward because if it's a baseline 5 for Kentucky, you got to jump it right up to a 10 because in 1 year, Kentucky fans have proved themselves right in pretty much every way. They wanted someone who understands the culture, just gets out of the Calipari school of self promotion and believes in BBN's whole aura standing for something bigger and in state kids and development and all these things. Mark Pope's a great offensive coach. He has already proven that he's willing to spend and can win over donors and spend higher than anyone else in the sport. He's proved he can retain players. He's proved he can recruit at the high school level for the most part. He basically hasn't missed in any way. We're going to fast forward to a 10. There's only one way he has missed. And I hate that I got to bring it up, but I got to bring it up. He lost at home at Rupp Arena to the guy that they ran out to replace with Mark Pope. He's 0-1 against John Calipari, and it was a big moment. It was honestly the biggest moment of Kentucky's season. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but given all the stakes of that game, I think that was the biggest moment of their season, and his team lost as sizable favorites to John Calipari on we get to dunk on John Calipari night. I'm sorry, Kentucky fans may say they want to ignore it, but to me, that has to be worth something. It can't be a 10 out of 10 if the guy you ran out is 1-0 against you. And oh, by the way, backed it up with a March run identical to Mark Pope's March run. You both made a Sweet 16. This is going to be a lifelong battle, even if you're happier in the moment with it, Kentucky fans. Until we get clarity that Mark Pope is going to run this program more successfully than John Calipari is going to run his program, we can't give it a 10 out of 10. It's not a max. So I'm only going to subtract 1 point, but it's a big, loud point. And I'm going to be watching what happens with Arkansas and Kentucky this year. They get a 9 from me from vibes. Ultimately, you add it up. Despite the low score from the departure category here, Kentucky gets a 75. They are alone by a wide margin as the second highest score in our State of the Program series nationally. I think that feels right, man. There's a lot of optimism with this Kentucky program. Do you think that feels right too?
Yeah, it does feel right. I mean, that's what I also want to go back to the vibes thing. You pitched that so well that we were going vibes high, and you just rug pulled them to bring them back down to John Calipari. So this video was great until that standpoint, and then they probably turned it off because they heard you just tee it up. But you were right on that. But to your point, yeah, the rankings here is what I picture with Kentucky, and they should deserve the high hopes and the high vibes because I thought they crushed this offseason. Like they did have some flaws in the roster last year, and Mark Pope went out and he basically filled those holes very well to where I'm pretty high on Kentucky, obviously, for this upcoming season.
Man, I would say comparatively to your Duke Blue Devils. I know we keep mentioning you're a Duke fan, but I look at the score where Duke ended up, not to spoil it, you can go watch it. It's really similar to Kentucky. The difference is Duke tanked the transfers category because Shire basically just said, I don't want to play it this year. I want to let my young guys rock. And look, a point of this exercise is we really believe there are 4 categories you have to be good in. You have to bring players back and retain them. You have to make sure at any given moment you don't lose too much. You have to make sure you're recruiting high school well, and you have to make sure you're playing the transfer portal. And that can come and go on a year-to-year basis. It won't always be the same. Right now, I think there's a very fair argument. Mark Pope is running this Kentucky program better than basically anyone in the sport other than maybe one school that's out alone in front in our scores right now. So go watch the rest of this series. If you enjoyed this video, we've got roughly 20 more of these. Many of them are already up on the channel. Thanks to J-Man for being here. Thanks to you for watching. We'll see you next time.